Hello everyone, I'm Gianluca from the newsletter Jefferson Lettere sull'America, and today I'm here to talk about the future of American progressives in the Democratic Party and their influence in the world. I'm not alone because we have a very special guest. Former Vermont Governor and Chair of the Democratic National Committee from 2005 to 2009, Howard Dean is here with us today. Governor Dean, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Governor, it's been 7 months since Joe Biden's victory against Donald Trump. In your opinion, is the country already better off than it was under Trump's watch?
It certainly is. By Trump's own measure, the stock market is higher, a lot higher. More people have confidence in the government, and the COVID situation is much, much better. But there's a lot of work yet to be done here. So, we have a long way to go.
Democrats failed to win the Senate in November, and in the end, they had to wait Georgia runoffs in early January to gain the slimmest possible U.S. Senate control. Why did down-ballot candidates perform so poorly compared to Biden's resounding victory?
Well, interestingly, Trump appealed to people who don't vote very often. And that's the first problem for the Democrats. The second problem is nobody understands how to poll anymore. The social media has completely changed polling. And the thing that's even more complicated is Trump voters in a much higher proportion than, say, Democrats or moderates don't answer polling questions. And they won't talk to people who come up to them as the polls are exiting to give their view of what they did. So I think one of the reasons is there was a big turnout of people who didn't vote for us, even though we had a big turnout as well. I think that was a group that has never been measured well before, and it's still not being measured well today.
Republicans think that your party is the radical leftist party. Is it true? Did Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign messages of increasing taxes and addressing the border crisis become Biden's main talking points?
Look, Biden would like to make peace among the American people. The Republicans don't fundamentally believe in democracy. They remind me of Salvini in Italy, who fundamentally doesn't care about democracy. They just want power and they don't care about the Constitution. So I discount anything the Republicans say. Unfortunately, we don't have an opposition party that supports our country anymore. Biden, I find, is a classic Democrat. He wants to help working people, and he's done that. His own background is working class. He certainly would like a universal health care program, and the Obama people, for which he was vice president, came close to getting that done. So I wouldn't say that Biden has adopted Bernie Sanders' platform or AOC's platform. I would say that much of what the language they speak about the same goals are very different, but the goals are very similar.
Now, I want you to comment on a historical comparison that has been around since Biden took office. Joe Biden is the new FDR. Do you agree?
I think it's much too early to tell. FDR is one of the three greatest presidents in the history of the United States. He's transformed America in ways that only Abraham Lincoln and George Washington transformed both America and the world. So I do think that Biden has some of the similar instincts that FDR had. I think he believes that the country should work for everybody and that it is for everybody. And that if you leave the working class behind, then the country's not going to work. And that the only way to save capitalism is to make capitalism work for everybody, which it no longer does. So from that point of view, I think Biden believes the same thing as FDR, but I think, Biden, unlike FDR, is not going to be elected 4 times. So we'll have to see how he does over a period of time.
In 2004, you ran a historic campaign, while Democrats were perhaps too willing to compromise with Bush's proposals, like cutting taxes or going to war in Iraq. Things have definitely changed since then. Do you believe that the future of the Democratic Party lies in embracing progressive ideas instead of sounding more moderate?
Yes. Here's the problem for the Democratic Party, and this is a problem in politics all over the world in democracies. So First of all, of course, we don't build coalitions the way you do in parliamentary democracies in Europe. We build our coalitions before the elections, not after the election. So that means that it looks like there are parties at great differences. What you have multiple parties, and then you make compromises afterwards, which in some ways is a better system in the sense that you can give a clear message for your party. And when you have coalitions before the election, it's harder to give a clear message because you have differences inside the coalition. So that's point number one. Point number two is we have a difference between the moderates and the progressives inside the Democratic Party. One of the big problems that we have is that both sides fail to realize that without both of us, both moderates and progressives, we can't win. In which case the autocrats become in charge, and we know what happens when you have an autocracy instead of a democracy. So what I ask people to do is I ask the moderates to vote more progressively. Most American people, especially working class people, would like universal health care. They would like better schools. They would like better highways. The moderates can vote for those kinds of things, including universal health care, without fearing that they're going to lose. What I'd like from the progressives is stop turning the flamethrower on your own people. If they don't agree with every single thing, the left has done this forever. If they don't agree with every single thing, then you're a sellout when you find something that they disagree with. I just disagreed with the left on the issue of patents. I don't think we should open up patents and give them away because I don't think it's going to result in any more vaccinations. I think what we really have to do is put more money into it, export more vaccine, and set up better distribution networks. You might have thought I was the biggest pharmaceutical company in the country after the left. We can have differences of opinion without using language on each other that makes it harder for everybody. And I asked both the left and the moderates. I asked the moderates to vote more progressive, and I asked the progressives to give the moderates a little bit of slack in the way they talk about issues.
America has always paved the way for political revolutions around the world. In the last few decades alone, it happened after Clinton's triumph in the 90s that reinvigorated left-wing parties all across Europe, and also after Trump's shocking victory that generated a populist wave that spanned from Italy to the Philippines. Still, Biden's impressive result in 2020 has yet to produce significant shifts in Europe, with conservatives recently managing to stay in power in local elections in Spain and in the UK. Will this change eventually?
Well, I think the populist movement was much more lively in Europe first. I think Europeans have got to get over the idea that the United States is going to solve their problems. Europe is going to be the leader in the next couple of decades. And Obama wanted that. Europe has to take responsibility for itself and stop checking in with the United States. You're far more advanced than we are in both your labor regulations and your environmental regulations, in tech regulations. And so the biggest problem in Europe is how to find unity among the EU. The EU is very young, and there's a lot of work to be done. And it's very hard work. And of course, you've got Putin doing everything he can to make the EU a mess by lying and by obstruction and by hijacking airplanes, apparently. So my view of this is that there are populist revolutions on both sides of the Atlantic, and there are also leftward motions on both sides of the Atlantic. And I don't think one area is leading the other anymore. I think that's a fundamental European model. And I think because of Trump, it became more obvious to Europeans that they had to lead because you weren't going to get any leadership out of the United States as long as Trump was. Well, the key thing that was said under the Trump administration was by Angela Merkel, who said we can no longer rely on the United States as a reliable ally. Now, that's not all bad. I think it's not true while Biden and the Democrats are in power, because we are, in fact, internationalists. And that is the future of the world, is an international future. But it is a good thing for Europe to figure out what they're going to do on their own and not take the cue from the United States. We need leadership out of Europe and political leadership out of Europe. And so far, I think we've been getting it. It's just a new situation that we haven't seen because the United States has been so dominant since the end of World War II.
Thank you, Governor, for being with us.
It's my great pleasure. And thank you for doing this.
I'm Gianluca, and see you next time.